Welcome back to Connections Career Coaching. My name is Pete Duffy, and today we're going to be talking about the final 4 power principles that are foundational to an effective job search. And those are work ethic, gratitude, communications, and belief. And rather than me doing all the talking today, I've invited a very special guest to join us, and our guest name is Tara Duffy. Tara, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are very welcome. I've invited Tara to join us today to talk about how she thinks about and lives these principles every day in order to successfully cope with a rare neuro-immune disease. And I especially wanted to come with us today so we could learn from her and learn from the millions of other people who struggle every day in learning to cope with their diseases as well. So Tara, welcome again. Thanks for being with us. Right. I want to maybe start off and talk about kind of the day in the life of your disease, kind of what it was like before and what you went through.
Yeah, so this is actually only the second opportunity that I've had to get to talk about my experiences with this illness. So this is really great. So I have a rare neuroimmune condition. It's called transverse myelitis. It's also called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. And basically what this is, it's an autoimmune attack on the nerves of the spinal cord, specifically the myelin sheath, which is the protective coating on the nerve cells. And this can result in paralysis and other permanent damage. So it's almost 3 years later, and I still have permanent damage. On a day-to-day basis, I deal with muscle spasms in my back, muscle fatigue, and sharp pains, and just aching pains, and I'll have to lay down, and that's really the only thing that will alleviate any of the pain, as well as a neurogenic bladder.
Now I know that you just started working at the YMCA after 2.5 years out of work. Can you tell us about what it's like to kind of, or more, what it was like before you actually had this neuroimmune disease from a work perspective, and now kind of what is it like to work now?
Yeah, so I started working as a lifeguard at the YMCA back in 2016, and I worked there from 2016 to 2017, and this was back when I was in high school. So a normal day for me would be to wake up, go to high school for 6 hours, I would go to cross-country practice afterwards, and then I worked 3 shifts during the week, so then I would go work my 3-hour shift. And lifeguarding, as most people know, it's very physically strenuous. It's a lot of walking, standing, and then I'd go home, do my homework. And it's a very stark contrast to 2.5 years later, I'm working at the front desk at the YMCA. And it's very different. I work 2 shifts during the week. I'll have to make sure I rest the day before, and then I'll have to get up an hour before my shift the next morning because I need to ice my back and just prepare myself physically and mentally for whatever's going to come, because my symptoms are unpredictable. And then when I get home, sometimes that's the only thing I'll be able to do that day, depending on my pain level.
And tell me, what would you say? Would you say working prior to the attack was harder than now, or do you think work now is harder?
Work now is harder.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I think it's because I have to put so much more of myself into my work now, because my body's at a physical deficit, and it has to work 10 times as harder just to do normal tasks, whereas before I was perfectly healthy. So even though lifeguarding was necessarily a harder job physically, now it takes a lot more.
Yeah, it's like mental, emotional, and physical all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I guess the question I always have is, how do you stay grateful, every day? How do you think about gratitude, and as it was before and as it is now?
My idea of gratitude has definitely changed over the years. Back when I was in high school, as most people will probably agree, you don't really think about gratitude too much. You're grateful to hang out with your friends, you're grateful if you get a car, you're grateful for money, mainly. But now, my idea of gratitude is more based on the opportunity every single day to recover physically just a little bit more, to be able to push my limits, to be able to get a new chance to start over And even if I am having a lot of pain that day, just to find the meaning and the beauty in whatever is around me that day, it's a really great chance to find gratitude.
I'm sure you're also grateful for your network and all that. Tell us about what it's like to communicate, with all the different people you have to communicate. What was it like before, and what is it like now for you?
I'm a very independent person, so before the onset of my illness, I didn't really like to, or I didn't have the need to really ask for anything, except for, once again, money for gas or whatever. And now communication is a vital part of my everyday life. Most importantly, communication with myself, just kind of checking in every day when I meditate. How am I feeling today? What do I need from myself? What can I give myself to make myself feel better? The second most important form of communication is with my family, because there are certain tasks that I physically just can't do, and so they'll need to do them for me. Or if I'm having a lot of pain that day, or if I'm just really tired, I'll need to ask them to do things maybe I would normally be able to do, but just can't do that day. The third is the most new form of communication, because I just started working, and has definitely been the most challenging so far, because going to work in a place where everyone sees me as normal, because let's face it, you wouldn't look at me and think, oh, she's dealing with daily pain, oh, she needs to lay down, she's gone through all this. No, they don't see that. So as someone who already struggles with finding that identity, I have this illness, but I also want to be normal, and they see me as normal, so I wouldn't want anything to kind of jeopardize that. But then as I kind of kept working, I realized it was only harming me, and I needed to just be honest. So I advocated for myself, and I sat down with my manager, and we had a really great conversation about what I've been through and what I need from her to be able to just be confident and be comfortable in a work environment. And ever since then, it's been really steady. And then the last form of communication is with my friends, because I need to be around them, but sometimes I just don't feel up to it, so they'll need to come to the house, or they'll need to bring me to them. So I think that entire network kind of just balances.
And talk about the network you had initially with the healthcare delivery system, with neuroimmunology and all that, when you had your attack, and kind of how has that gone for you now? Like, how has that evolved?
I definitely needed them a lot more at first in the acute stage, because everything was so new, and there were things that they could do for me, like, for example, steroid and IVIG treatments and things like that. But once the recovery progresses, there's less and less they can actually do for you. So my physical therapist and my massage therapist kind of became cornerstones of my therapy and my continued progress, both for physical recovery and for emotional support. Yeah, they've been really important.
So the idea of recovery is unique in this situation, because the healthcare side could say that almost you're as recovered as you can be for us. Is that right? And then another form of recovery takes place, which is more of the emotional, right, side of it. Talk to us about your experience with your later recovery network, physical therapy, as well as massage therapy.
Yeah, so physical therapy with this disease it's continual. It can't just, you didn't just break your leg and you just need like 30 visits for it to be done. It's your nerve cells may not, like the myelin may not even grow back in your lifetime. So it's day by day just forcing your body to function at its best capacity. And sometimes, like when I started working with my back muscles, they did not want to do what I was asking them to do. And it just increased the pain. So physical therapy it's so important, because you have that support while you're increasing your pain level in order for the pain to get better. So it's a little confusing, but
Yeah, no, it sounds absolutely amazing. That whole idea of recovery and the importance of your entire network of but the right people, right, within that network. I guess the last question that I have, and I think people who are watching this too, is, for most it would be almost impossible to deal with this. How do you maintain your belief system as you go through this?
Belief, I've found, is something most people don't understand or may never have to understand. It's something that needs to be built across sometimes years, and it can't just appear. You can't just suddenly wake up one day and be like, oh, yeah, I believe in myself. I mean, that's great, but it doesn't have as much meaning. And I think at the onset of my illness, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what power it carried until I actually started talking with my therapist, and it became a huge topic of conversation with us. And at first, it was just a word that I repeated to myself across 2 years. And then one day, I realized, without me even knowing it, it had affected the way that I responded to things. It affected the way that I saw myself. And belief to me now is freedom from the tethers of my illness, and it frees you from the pain, from the isolation, from the heartbreaking, kind of restores you to yourself, because with these illnesses you do lose yourself to it and you do become consumed by it, and you just think you'll never find who you were or who you're going to be. But belief, you become separate from the disease and you become you again.
Yeah, that's very powerful, the whole idea of belief. And so, really we're here today also to talk about people who are struggling with, maybe they're in the wrong job and they can't wait to get out of it, or they're also desperately looking for work. What advice would you have for them knowing what we've talked about today?
I would say sit down and just listen to what you're trying to tell yourself, because especially now, the world, there's so much going on and it's so crazy, it's so easy to get lost in it and to lose yourself to it. So I would just say listen to what you're trying to tell yourself, and remember that no matter what's going on and whatever circumstances you think are just so heavy that you can't break free from them, you are more powerful than your circumstances. And if you can take control of yourself, then they won't have control over you anymore.
Right. That in itself is very powerful. And the things that I've got out of this and will take to my clients as well is this whole idea of when we start about work ethic and really how hard you have to work every day, and also talking about people who are looking for work, how hard they do need to work every day in order to find that next place. And this whole idea of gratitude and living with gratitude and thinking about the small things you can be grateful for every day, and having a supportive network that you can reach out to and to help you to get through the day and to help you identify opportunities and things like that can make the world of difference. And of course, without belief, it would be very difficult to get through these times for people who are desperately seeking work and things like that. So I've got that out of our conversation today, and I just want to thank you so much for joining us. And I think it's been very meaningful and very powerful for myself and for the people who are watching this. So thank you. And I also want to thank everybody here that's watching this today. I hope it has been valuable for you, and that you can connect some of the dots, the things that Tara shared. And I also want to reinforce and encourage you to work hard every single day to incorporate the power principles that we have been talking about. And that's starting with integrity, discernment, courage, perseverance, and then the wonderful example that Tara gave around work ethic and gratitude, communications, and belief. And I want to thank you for joining us for this series. And I also want to invite you to come and hear the next series, which will be aired next week, which are the 7 success principles to an effective reference check process. So again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you real soon. Bye-bye.